Joining us right now is Michael Frey. He is a Fairfax County Board of Supervisor, and he represents the Sully District. He's represented that district since he first ran in 1991. A Republican. Supervisor Frey, thanks for joining us this morning.
Sure, thanks for having me.
You are a Republican. You run often when you get reelected. It's often on fiscal conservative issues. And by the way, we appreciate you being here. We would love to have an ongoing conversation with you here on WMAL, since so many of the great listeners of our station live in your district. I think they'd love to hear from you on a regular basis.
I would enjoy that.
We were noting that the county seems to have a $100 million budget surplus, and a lot of discussion publicly in the Washington Post and on various blogs around town, wondering what are you going to do about that? And most of the conversation has to do with a good chunk of it going back to county employees, either in the form of a bonus or in the form of a pay increase. I didn't see anywhere it addressed that maybe some of this budget surplus could go back to the residents of Fairfax County, the taxpayers. And I know that when you were looking at a budget back in April, you were looking at a $169 million shortfall, and one of the ways you rectified that was to increase property taxes by an average of $216 for every homeowner. So you're the Republican there at the Board of Supervisors. Was there any conversation about a tax rebate? Because I don't see it anywhere.
No, there really wasn't. The term surplus is a bit of a misnomer when you think that, first of all, we have a general fund budget over $3.5 billion, and we're dealing with projections that are, sometimes 12, 15 months out. And then remember, too, that the law says we have to finish with a balanced budget. We don't have a choice. We're not the feds. We can't print money. So we have to finish the year with a if you want to call it a surplus. The $100 million is really a very small percentage. It's less than 1%.
Well, I get that, but for some people, a little piece of that back would be welcome. And I get your point that you have to project, and you don't want to find yourself in a shortfall situation. And it is hard sometimes to project 12, 15 months out. But at the end of the day, when you have a surplus, why not return it to the people that you took it from?
Well, because we still have an awful lot of needs. Taxpayers continue to expect services, whether it's basic police, fire protection. Our school system is growing by more than 3,000 students a year.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at what would potentially be returned to the taxpayer, the homeowners, you'd be looking at pennies. And when you look at the situation with the federal government, the stagnant economy, the expectations that we're going to have for next year, we're still facing a potential shortfall next year. So it seemed more prudent to make a little bit of investment, put a little bit into our county employees, and then put a little bit into reserve to offset that potential shortfall for next year.
So what's your plan? You say put a little, make an investment and put a little back into our county employees. What do you want done with this projected $100 million surplus?
Well, the board did vote on Tuesday to give a one-time bonus to county employees of $850, which after taxes would be about $500.
And did you vote for that?
I did. I voted initially for the amendment that would have given an across-the-board pay increase that would be recurring as opposed to one time.
All right. So, but here's where I think a lot of people start to have problems. And believe me, when we talked about this the other day, you would not believe the response. Phone lines lit up. Everybody was angry about the fact that there was such a surplus and that there wasn't any consideration of doing something for the people who actually provide the money. There's a sort of sense out there that the Board of Supervisors has lost sight of the fact that it's not your money, it's their money. But then on top of that, we see this story with the library, where somebody opens up a dumpster and finds that over the course of recent months, 250,000 books have been thrown away. It's an overriding sense that you're not paying attention to the desires of the taxpayer, and you're wasting money.
I understand that, and I guess it's easy right now. There's an overall sense of anti-government, of you look at the dysfunctional federal government, you look at issues with the state government. People sometimes forget everything gets dumped down on local government. The way the feds and the state cut is to make local governments do things and then don't pay for it. So we've got an awful lot of pressures on us, and not a lot of sources of revenue to pay for it. The libraries is an easy one. I think people don't always look at the bigger picture. We have to throw stuff away because we're bringing new stuff in every day, and a book that sits on the shelves unused for 3 or 4 years, it makes sense.
But any person in private business or even people in their homes, if they've got extra books around, they go when they resell them. They can make a little bit of money on it.
Hold a garage sale or a book sale or something,
or donate it.
We give them to the Friends of the Library all the time. We're more than willing to give them really to anybody that wants them. There's just not a lot of market out there for 3 or 4 year old textbooks.
I don't know. It's not textbooks. These
on other groups isn't necessarily a good thing.
These are library books, not textbooks. These are novels. These are books. At Amazon.com right now, if you want a book, you can either buy it new or there are people reselling books. It happens all the time in the real private sector.
And we don't have a staff that is in that market. Maybe we should. We tend to just give them to groups that want them and dispose of others. But of all those books that were disposed, I would suspect you'd find very few that have any real value out on the market.
All right. Just before we let you go, and I want to echo my appreciation for you being here.
Because you're the guy who decided to come on and answer these questions.
Michael Frey, again, he represents the Sully District and the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. I just want to get you, property taxes were raised just 6 months ago because you were looking at a projected shortfall of $169 million. Now there's a projected surplus of $100 million. You say there was no conversation about potentially lowering taxes. You said it would have been pennies. Do you know what the calculation is to give that $100 million back to property owners, how much it would have meant to them?
Well, a penny on the tax rate equals about $22 million in revenue. A penny increase to the average taxpayer is something around like mid-40s, $45. Most of the increase that came last spring was due to the rebound in the housing market and increased appreciation.
And isn't that expected to continue?
Yeah. There's no question. Houses are going to go up.
So then why?
Well, again, you're
talking about another projected budget shortfall,
right? And we will look at everything, including the property tax rate, next spring. The reason that the board chose to do a one-time bonus was because that's non-recurring.
Okay.
And a tax rate reduction, had we done anything, would have been a recurring, and it was felt more appropriate that we do that next spring as a part of the annual budget process.
We will look forward to having that conversation with you as we move toward the budget process in the spring, sir.
I will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.